If you are intelligent, then you know that freedom is inherent because it's evident. It doesn't come from government, it don't come from the president, it comes from the creator of all universal elements. Some people say it's God-given, others say it's heaven sent. No matter what you call it, natural law sets the precedent. Subjective morality's a fallacy. There's laws that we cannot see, like gravity, that people accept happily, but tragically they believe that freedom has to be granted to them magically by royalty or majesty. It's sad to see people willingly give up their liberty because they don't really see the enemy that's on a killing spree. The state, it hates sovereign individuals because those who follow natural law and abide by all its principles are mentally invincible, immune to the brainwash. We liberate ourselves and then help others break the chains off. We ain't soft, we go hard like when the thunder hits. Guns and clips ready in self-defense from the government and the elitists running it. Blast them all, claim our freedom standing under it. Natural law, the elitists running it. Blast them all, claim our freedom standing under it. Natural law, freedom under natural law for us all. Yeah, freedom under natural law for us all. Yeah, freedom under natural law for us all. What? For us all. What? Freedom for us all. What? You know what we do. Get big on FUNL. If you are intelligent, then you know that freedom is inherent because it's evident. It doesn't come.
What up, brothers and sisters? Will Keller here with another live stream, random live stream. I'm actually liking this. I'm not held to a certain schedule, just going off the fly, off the cuff. And thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it. We're going live to most of my platforms, including my website, willkeller.com. And I'm doing an interview series, and I think I'm going to continue doing these interview series with students, either past or current students of How to Become the True Media seminar hosted by Mark Passio. I like it. I think it's a good way to connect with the students, hear their stories. We have that relatability in their experiences that we can share and connect with. And it's also inspiring and motivation to create action in the world for, truth, freedom, and morality. So before I join my good friend Raf, I'm going to do a little housekeeping real quick. Just one quick announcement. Actually, tonight, I'm going to be on the Deliberating Dog-Faced Dudes. This is a YouTube channel by Ben Balderson, my partner on Natural Freedom League, John Rowland and Alan. They're doing a deliberation debate style YouTube channel. And tonight I'm going to be their guest. And the topic is morality objective or subjective? So I respect these guys. I know most of them in person in the real world. So there's that level of respect. It's going to be comfortable, it's going to be organic, it's going to be spicy, and it's going to be a huge topic that we need to talk about. So join us. That's tonight, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And their channel is Deliberating Dog-Faced Dudes. So that's going to be exciting. Go over there, check us out. I don't do many debates, but I'm willing to stand on this topic and have a great conversation, and we can all learn something. So check us out. And, now I'll bring in my buddy Raf. What's up, my brother?
Hey.
How you doing, man?
Hey, well, thanks for inviting me over. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure thing, man. I'm glad you're on here. And again, like I was saying, you're a current student of How to Become the True Media. Is this your first year, or did you do a previous year?
It's my second time, and
That's
admittedly, the first time, it's not that I didn't take it seriously, but I got too caught up in the busy lifestyle, and it started with what, I already know that information. I'm just gonna watch it later. And then I found out, okay, it's not being recorded, and oh, it's not a big deal. And then I would tune in and say, um, oh, he's covering Mac OS, and I use Windows, so I don't need to know that. So I'm gonna watch it, later on when he's covering the Windows stuff,
Yeah.
and then I would just go to sleep and forget. So, and then I probably only went for like the first 7 classes, and then I just missed the whole thing. And the whole time I'm just like, man, what a doofus, right? So this time I was just, I'm not going to be that guy again. And I pretty much told everybody in the 2023 class what I had done, just to kind of put myself out there and get some accountability that way on my own, right? So
Yeah.
to hold myself responsible and to do the right thing, right? So
That's awesome, man. That's excellent. It's I consider how to become the true media seminar. It's a modern mystery tradition in technology, right? This is a mystery school because Mark talks about, not only are you learning a wealth of knowledge on the technical aspect, but of course he reinforces the tenets and the principles, which absolutely are life principles to live by and to apply in creating a message and content, to applying to your life, doing research, all this kind of stuff. These tenets can be applied. So it's a huge seminar, and there's been a few people that have taken it more than once just to digest and kind of get grounded with the information. I think it really comes down to kind of knowing yourself and knowing what direction you want to go, and then applying that knowledge and putting it in action.
yeah, like I plan to take it again, even just because things are always changing. It's
Yeah.
you even from 2023 to this year, there's a lot of things that Mark is covering that I can tell have changed a bit. So he's really good about keeping up with what's out there, what's recent, and what's current. But everyone has to start somewhere, and I think his strategy is, okay, let's start from the ground up. Let's build the principles, let's build a foundation, and you know it's getting super interesting. I think it's well put together, and Mark, he's an amazing presenter and teacher. So
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I mean, I learn new stuff all the time from Mark, from the students asking questions, to leads on technology and tactics and strategies from the chat and the community itself, and then like the after chat is fantastic. So that's great, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this year. And I want to know your story. I want to know your experience. So the floor is yours. If you want to share that, you can go as deep as you want. And I'll preface this why I think this is important, because we obviously relate to stories. They're extremely powerful and empowering as well. But hearing someone's experience, especially in this day and age where a lot of people come into higher awareness, quote unquote, waking up, they do it alone. And that's a process of self discovery, and also a process of death and rebirth is how I look at it. This is part of the initiation construct and process. So when we hear people's experiences and stories, we can relate to that. And I think, I'm a firm believer in connection, human connection, and we can do this
absolutely.
through stories and through experiences. So the floor is yours.
No, absolutely. I've always noticed that for me, it's almost like I remember just being 6, 7 years old and having these out of body experiences. Where I would just wake myself up, and I would see myself sleeping, in my bed, and then I just walk around my house, and I would see like animals. I would see like wolves, or I would see like a gorilla, like calling me, and there would be these bars in my home in Dominican Republic, and then the gorilla was trying to, he would start like big in size, right, and he would get tiny and get past the bars. So he would get past the bars, and he would call me like this, you know, for me to get past the bars. And I would say to him, like, how am I supposed to get small like you to get past the bars? And he would just go like this and calling me and calling me. But then eventually he would just walk away, and I would just stay there and inside the house with behind the bars.
Mm.
And I never understood what that meant until, maybe 5, 10 years ago, where I was just like, wow, he was telling me to go with him and he was going to show me something. I just didn't know what that was. And I didn't have the guts at the time to kind of take that leap forward and see what it was. Right. So I remember like having experiences like this. And then over time, as I grew older, I noticed that in Dominican Republic, there was almost like this code. No one really would define it, but there was a code with everything. If you were out there playing and you had to get in a fight, for example, you can never fight somebody that was smaller, shorter than you. It had to be somebody like your size. You can never fight anyone that was taller than you either. No one would let that taller guy fight you.
Interesting.
And then
Street code.
it's a street code. And I noticed like over time, I'm thinking, man, who the hell taught people this? It's
Mm.
almost like there's a moral code. And my dad, right, he passed away young, man. My stepdad, he passed away at like 31 years old or 30 years old. And before he took his last trip into the States, he had a jewelry store and he was exchanging gold. He was taking gold from Dominican Republic and selling it in the States. And he had a jewelry store that way. And his last trip, he was like, "Hey, take care of your mom," and that kind of resonated with me like my entire life. And I was just a little kid, and he tells me these words that put so much weight, on a person, right? On being so young, right? I felt like, wow, like I had a huge responsibility to take care of my mom. And then he passed away. He got shot. So I remember he used to do all these sports, and he left me like plenty of baseball bats and baseballs and softballs and gloves and basketballs. I always had every single sport I could play. So all the kids on the block would always look for me because I had all these you know I had the means to play any sport, right? Rackets for tennis. I mean, it was unheard of in Dominican Republic to have all these things. So all the kids will always look for me. So I was always kind of like protected, in the block, right? Because no one can mess with me because I had all the toys type of thing, right? And through that, I got to, play almost any sport, and then I became decent at like many sports. And I was always trying to get into fights because people would try to, take my turn into playing, or, they would try to run away with my stuff, so and I would always get called on to fight other people out of nowhere. They would say, "Hey, Raf, we need you to fight somebody. You're about their size." So three, four, five guys knew, right, that they couldn't just get anyone to fight this, another person. They had to get the person the right size. And it was just so funny that now looking back, it's like, wow, they had a moral code that they followed, and they would stick to it for sure. Like those codes could not be broken. If you heard of anyone breaking that code, then you would get punished by other people. So um, it was just interesting. Growing up in Dominican Republic is super different than here. So when I came here to the United States, it was no code, no code, man. There were like gangs. The gangs were ganging up on 2, 3 kids.
Mm.
And me seeing the difference in Dominican Republic and coming into the US, I would say like, this is stupid. Like why would you want to be on a gang? So a buddy of mine that was getting bullied, I would go with him and to say, look, you're not gonna get bullied. Let's just go. They're not gonna do anything. And I would just hang around with this kid, and they would come and try to bully him, and I would just stand there and I wouldn't stand for it. I just wouldn't stand for it. So I would stand up for me and for this kid, and then eventually I had to get in a fight. So I ended up getting in a fight. I ended up, throwing a punch at somebody that, and it happened to catch them. And then we got broken up at the right time. And I became like the kid that punched this other kid. And this other kid was supposed to be like one of the head guys in the gang. And the word spread that I beat
Mm.
this kid's butt, right? And I'm like, man, I didn't really do that. I was just protecting myself. But now everyone wants to fight me because I'm the guy that beat this kid, right? So
Mm.
that was like in eighth grade or whatever. And then that kind of carried into high school. And then from there, it's just escalated into all these things where people thought I was like, the head of a gang. And it turned out that there was another kid named Raphael that was head of a gang. And then people wanted to fight me. And after they found, that it wasn't me, I'm not the Raphael you're looking for. I'm not the head of no gang. All the kids kind of started apologizing and saying, hey, we didn't know. This is after they beat me up a couple times, right? So
Interesting.
then we became friends. I became friends with a lot of those guys that try to beat me up, and then yeah, it's just like a constant. When I look back at my life, I'm like, man, like all these things, and it's all laws of morality is what I see. That kind of just come into full circle and teach you these things. It's almost like nature is trying to show you something to prepare you.
Like
Showing
it's
you like,
inherent,
okay,
right? Like it's
yeah,
inherent to reality and nature, and probably some of our, our strongest childhood memories are rooted in some type of ethical or moral um, dilemma or action or behavior for sure.
yeah, yeah. So I only got to see that as I got older. Before, I just thought like, man, this sucks that this is happening to me. But now I'm like, I'm glad it happened to me because I see kids now, and there's a lot of kids that a lot of parents are robbing their kids from these opportunities to learn from these moral lessons from school or from just nature in general. I mean, a lot of kids don't go out. They don't. The other day, I had to teach this girl that that they're going into a trip for eighth grade. She's in seventh grade. She doesn't know how to ride a bike, and her mom and dad were like, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, bring her over to my house. I'll teach her. And I had like this trick where I would take like a scarf or a towel and then use it for balance so they can get comfortable just kind of riding the bike, and then eventually I let go of the towel. But yeah, I helped this girl, and she tried out to ride her bike to see if she could make it to this trip, and she didn't make it, but she knows how to ride her bike. So
That's awesome,
it's
man.
the parents were so grateful and appreciative, right? So these are the things where I'm like, man, like kids nowadays, they don't have it as good as we did, even though we struggled a little bit. They don't have the freedoms we have. They're all, it's just the phone. And from the phone, there's not a lot that they can do from there. They don't get to experience, much of else to take on these lessons that are going to help them later on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm sure every well, maybe there's a reason why, older generations say, "Oh, it's getting worse. It's getting worse." Right? Oh, the younger kids nowadays, it's getting worse. Yeah, because it is. Right? It's like you can see the moral degradation, and what you were talking about with fights and having a code. I got into a lot of fights when I was a young, when I was a teenager. A lot of fights, and but there was somewhat of a code. I mean, it was throwing hands, and that was it. There was really nothing as far as cheap shots were frowned upon,
That's
right? It
right.
was like you square up, there's a circle, and now let's throw down, let's get down. And now it's just stab someone when someone's not looking. But going beyond that, just the moral awareness of the youth today, you can tell that it's degrading. And of course, that's going to be hand in hand with the types of technology that are available, where their attention is in their care, and it ultimately stems from education. The parental aspect is primary to that, and then the cultural influences. Nowadays with materialism and all these different things, which have always been around, but they are getting worse. It's observable. You can see it, how it's following this certain negative progression of immorality. So it's fascinating.
No, I agree. And like I keep saying, as I got older, I got to see these patterns, and then just for I think for in my 20s, I would say in my early 30s, I kind of fell into I would say a trap. Now that I look back at it, I fell into the trap of just like chasing the job and chasing education and chasing, the family and the home and the dogs and the cars, and the money and the dinners and, just like comfortable living, right? And I kind of forgot, you know, it's almost like a part of me forgot what I was meant to do, you know, like all those lessons were just fading out and there were not really generating the actions that they were meant to generate out of me, so that I can keep learning and growing. So aligning myself with that stuff, aligning myself with making sure that I was comfortable, it was good in a way because now my kids are able to live a better life than I did. But then it got time where I was just so tired of just doing the same thing over and over. It was like my friends will call me, we will go out, um, I was always just focused on, okay, what are we doing this weekend, and making sure that I was kind of being the provider, which is not a bad thing, to be a provider for a family, but when your attention just kind of focuses too much on that, you miss out on yourself, on bringing the awareness back to, okay, who is Raphael, and what is my purpose, what I'm doing what everybody else does. I'm going to school, I'm supposed to do that based on society, societal norms, right? I'm supposed to have a job now, I'm supposed to have a 401k, I'm supposed to have like all these things, and I have all that, right? And that stuff just kind of happened. It's not like I woke up one day and I said, "Oh my God, I can't wait to have a 401k plan." No, it was
Hmm.
just like I went into my job. They told me, okay, in new hire orientation, there's a page that tells you about your 401k and how much you want to contribute. And it was just so easy. You sign on the line, you say how much you want to put away from your check, and all of a sudden you have an account, and that account you watch it and it goes up and it goes down. I had really no thought in that, in doing that. Like I didn't really think of it, right? Of setting that up for myself. So it's something that just comes with the job,
Yeah.
So I was just kind of tired of doing that whole thing over and over again. And, you know, eventually I started getting like these things where I would just get these episodes of just getting sick. I would get sick, every time I reached a high point in my life, I would get something that no one else had around me, or it was something that was pretty rare. Like, I had one of the worst case of mono ever. That I, the doctors would say, you know what, 5% of people have this kind of mono, and 5% of people, usually die from this. And then I go, why me? Like, I don't even know how I got this. I was always in my house working out and eating well, and all of a sudden I have mono. And
Hmm.
then there was another period of my life where I had Lyme disease. And then I look into Lyme disease, and this is such a rare thing to get. And Lyme disease kicked my butt, man. Like, you talk about hallucinations and voices in your head, and, just that feeling of like destroying yourself was like very real. And it
Yeah.
came from the Lyme disease.
Mm.
And then the mono, what's one of the toughest things I had to go through. The Lyme disease kind of stepped it up, and then I had COVID, and then COVID was what beat me up, man. I was in the hospital 33 days, just at the mercy of doctors telling me that I wasn't going to make it. It was like every day a doctor would come in, look at me for 2.5 minutes, and then tell me, "You're not looking good. You know, call your family. We don't know if you're
Oh
going to make
wow.
it tomorrow." And I'm just like, why is this happening to me, right? So,
I'm
um,
curious to interject real quick. What would you say your level of awareness of what's going on in the world? The cause, the causal factors. Like what level would you say? Did you fairly have a grasp? Were you seeking occultism or any kind of?
no, man.
Okay,
If I would
got it.
say 1 through 10, at that time when I had COVID in the hospital, it was maybe a 6. And it's because I was just too blind at that time to see, but the signs were, now that I look back, the signs were super obvious, like
Mm.
super, super obvious. Like, I remember one time I was in my lowest. I was very low. I was paying attention to other people and not myself. I would look at my friends and the time, how happy they were, right? And they had the good jobs and the nice family and all that stuff that I wanted. And I started hanging out with, with these people. And one time I was at the beach, and I was just so low, man. And one of my friends says, "Hey, Raf, we're gonna go over to that side of the beach, and we're gonna, grab, try to get some crabs or something like that." And I said, "No, I'm just gonna stay on this side. You guys go ahead. I'll watch everything." They had like a bunch of umbrellas and things like that, so I just kind of sat back and enjoyed the sun. But I could just feel the sun just calling me. It's a weird feeling. And I was feeling so low, I started crying for no reason. So I got up off my chair and I looked at the sun and I said, I want to know what the hell is going on right now, you know? And I talked to the sun. I opened up my arms like this and I could feel just my heart like getting super warm. And I said, I use profanity, man. I was like, I want to know what the fuck is going on right now. Like, tell me right now. Like, I want to know. Like, I was very aggressive. I wasn't like, I said, it's my birthright. Like, I want to know right now. And that night, man, I was taken on a ride, brother. Like,
Mm.
I was taken on a ride, man, like from
Ask and you shall receive.
absolutely. And I believe that now after that day. And I was so scared out of my mind, man. So scared. But I just didn't know what was happening. So that night, I went to sleep and I just felt like this rush of energy. And I would just wake up in different places. It's the only thing I could explain it. So I would, you know, I woke up. You ever seen that movie, The Matrix? I mean, you've seen The Matrix when Neo is in the white room with Morpheus, and
Mm.
he's kind of explaining like, hey, the people down there or the people in the simulation, they're protected, and they'll do anything just to keep the lifestyle and all that stuff. And
Oh yeah.
I woke up in a white room, completely white, looking around, nothing, nothing there to do. It's completely empty. But when I looked down this hallway, there was like a podium and something was kind of shimmering. And I said, okay, let me see what that is. And I walk down and I see the podium, and I go around it, and there's a book. And it almost looked like an old book, like a Bible almost, but the pages were empty, blank. And there was a nice golden pen in the middle. And I grab the golden pen and I look at it and I take off into the sky and I'm
Mm.
flying. And everywhere I use this pen, where I point through the clouds, through anywhere, man, and I'm getting like super close to the sun. And I'm just like flying through the clouds, whipping. You could feel it. It's almost like you could never tell me that I was dreaming. You'd be, I would call you crazy. I would be like, no, this is not a dream. So after I had
You
a lot
think
of
it
fun
was
doing that,
more of a lucid state or out of body state?
I I had no idea who I was. Like if there was someone sleeping in the bed, like waiting for me, that wasn't
Yeah.
even in my mind. Like I had just, it
Gotcha.
was not even a thought. Like, for me, that was who I was,
Hmm.
you know? And
Seems
after
like
I,
almost like a Satori experience.
what is that? Satori?
Satori experiences would be like a they happen, but they're rare. It's not typical. Sometimes they can be extremely dangerous. It's a sudden alignment and burst of energy, almost like an instant Kundalini awakening experience on the biological level. You get all these rush of endorphins, and your chakras, your centers, your meridians all open up at the same time. Sometimes it can cause physical damage,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's what it is. Essentially,
Wow.
it's a sudden, quote unquote, awakening.
Wow. That
So
could have
yeah,
been it. That could have been it because I'm telling you, when I asked the son, I was like, for me, that was it. Like if I didn't get a response soon, I was just like, man, like what's the meaning of everything? It's after that dream, then I started waking up in different places. So when I stopped flying, I would then I then woke up like in front of my house somewhere, and I had this huge eagle. huge eagle, man, on my right shoulder. And I could feel like the talons like this, just like all over my shoulder, digging in. It was so real, like I could feel it. And I would look at this eagle like this, like, oh my God, like what are you doing? Like, and I would just admire this beautiful bird, right?
Mm.
And then the bird would fly off to a tree. It would just fly like super fast, and it would get really small up in a tree. And then when I would look away, it would come back. When I would look at it, it would go away. When I look away, it would come back. And I just didn't know what to do with this eagle, but it was just chilling, chilling on my right arm. This beautiful bird, man. I didn't know. I still don't know what the meaning of that is, but
Fascinating.
it's just yeah, it was just amazing. And then from there, it's like you said. It's like you said. I was trying to wake up, and as I'm trying to wake up, I can't. I finally see that something's going on, and I start seeing the walls of the matrix where they have all these numbers kind of raining down. I start
Hmm.
seeing this, and it's like I'm in a tunnel, and it's full of numbers, and the tunnel is opening up, and all these numbers start hitting me like 4, 5, 9, 1, 3, and I get all these numbers, and they're hitting my forehead, and it's almost like I'm connected to like an electrical outlet through my forehead,
Mm.
and I cannot detach myself. I'm just going like this, physically trying to detach, and I can't. Eventually, I detach, and I noticed that my body was like half off my bed. It's so strange because I could feel myself like land in my bed, and I'm just like, wow, what the hell was that? And then from there, I got to wake up and I was just so scared, so freaked out. So I started having other experiences, after that, after asking the sun, for sure. And I think that day is when I knew there was more. I was like, oh no, life is not just this. If I'm able to experience that, then I have to see where this is going to take me. So,
It was a
um,
catalyst to start your journey of seeking. That's what it
absolutely.
sounds like. It sounds like you absolutely had an out of body experience. I would say, and again, just my opinion, but like the Satori, very similar sudden rush of DMT. It could blast you out of your body as well. And the Satori is a Buddhist term, which just means sudden enlightenment or awakening, and it has physical properties to it. But yeah, it sounds like an out of body experience for sure.
Yeah. So, Tori, I'll have to look that up because, and I think that's not one of the problems, but I think, me not knowing what I was doing, I just felt like this, pain or suffering, and and I knew that I wanted to get out of it, and my only choice was to ask myself because, many times I remember asking other people, for help. People just don't know what to do. I've come to the conclusion that we just don't know what to do. We're just caught up on the day to day that it's hard to make the distinction of, even when someone is asking for help versus when someone is really asking for help. Like people think, asking for help is just like, oh, he'll figure it out,
Mm,
but some people are really hurting out there, and they're asking you, help
absolutely.
me, and sometimes we just turn away because we just don't see the signs, and I kind of lived through that, where I would ask people for help and they'll say, well, you know, no one ever said like meditate or, you know, no one ever said anything that made sense, and then I realized like, okay, we, no, nobody knows what they're doing.
Hmm.
Not your parents, not your friends, not your teachers, not your pastor, definitely not your, your president or anything like that. So
Yeah,
it's,
that still is mind-boggling to me. The normies, the NPCs, the average people of the planet, wherever you're at, they're everywhere. They're the majority. They don't ask themselves, "Who am I?
yeah,
What's really going on? What's the nature of reality?" Like these deep philosophical questions. Sure, they'll believe. in God, cultural religions, what they say. They'll just believe that, right? The dogma. But getting to that level of seeking, which the seeker is an archetype for sure, and anyone that is on that path of truth discovery has that seeker archetype activated at some point or is currently activated. But that's just so out of place for the average person, the majority of people. They just don't even consider that. When I was coming into my experience of higher awareness, it was really hard to hang out with friends because it was just so surface level and repetitive in interactions, and conversations were about sports and this kind of stuff. It was physically repulsive to me. I couldn't do it anymore. I physically couldn't do it, spiritually couldn't do it. And there was that time period where I'm like, dropping these questions, these seeds, and trying to engage in conversation, and people were like, man, I've never thought about stuff like that, and you're getting weird, you're getting out there. And I'm just like, wow, where are the
Yeah.
people that do think like this?
I know. I know. I went through a phase like that where I was just just asking my friends and family about things, and it's they just didn't know what to answer. So I started just asking people. I would go to a Walmart, and if I saw them looking at a book or something, I would say, "Hey, what kind of book are you looking for? Like, are you into this stuff? Are you into that stuff?" And then slowly I started running into people that are into, reading the esoteric stuff and the occult stuff, but it's very hard to find those people if you don't initiate, if you don't engage with them first, because no one's going to openly say or ask you, right? They're not going to ask you, hey, do you follow this? And I keep doing that mainly when I'm with my family, because I got 3 girls and my wife, and whenever we're around, I just go off to completely to the back of the store and I start looking just to see what people are doing, and just kind of gauging the level of consciousness that's out there, right? And you'll run into people that do know, and they'll give you their Instagram, and and I'll go back and forth with them, a few times, and you can tell that they're looking and seeking, and I'll hit them with the arc. I'll say, look, there's tons of information in there that you can look at. For the next 30 years, you won't be done, right? So I ran into a good kid that way, and he actually works at the Walmart, and he's like, I just grab a book from here from Walmart, I'll go read it, and then bring it back. I don't actually buy it, because I don't need to. I just bring it back, and I said, oh well, if you're interested in reading like other things, let me know. I can give you a few books, and this is how you get them. And we became friends like that on Instagram, anyways. Nothing,
Sure.
nothing too much deeper, but yeah, we just have to put ourselves out there. Just take that risk of initiating engagement with others, and I think there's people out there that want to know more. We just have to find them.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, that's my motto: going public and creating content. Um, and there are people seeking,
Seeking.
and the more people activate and put themselves out there and go public and talk about these important topics like morality, natural law, what are the dynamics of freedom, you're going to those seekers that are out there taking in information, they're in that grammar stage, they potentially are going to come across your work, they're going to resonate with you, and they're going to learn from you. And if we can keep that cycle going, it reverberates in the ethers, and it amplifies as well. Like you said, when I do construction, I go into people's homes. I'm my own boss, I have my own business. And so I talk to random strangers. I'm in their home, and I actually like that. Been doing that for many, many years. I feel like I have a major in psychology just by talking to people in their home, right? In their comfort zone. And, but when you meet someone that is a seeker and has that archetype opened up, it's like an immediate connection. Where they engage in philosophical contexts, or seeking the truth or what's going on in the world. whatever level that may be, there is that immediate connection that you have with someone, and that's soul to soul communication. That's how I look at that.
You
With
feel
this,
it.
you feel it absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, having fantastic relationships on the ether webs, right? And then you go to a conference or a seminar or something in person, and you meet these people face to face. It's almost like some of them that connection has built. It's like soul family. That's because those people are in the process of stripping the artificial, the facade off reality that has been put there by the social engineers and our
Wow.
programming and conditioning from our parents and society. Those people are stripped, they're peeling that onion, that matrix, line by line, code by code. And what emerges is the truth, nature, reality, right? And the real self and soul and spirit that we all have. Just some are at different levels and some are, really ensconced and calcified. So another reason why I think sharing stories and putting yourself out there, having humility and having care and sharing,
Yeah.
it's vital.
Have you had anything anything strange like that happen to you, like the story that I told you about the eagle and flying, and have you had experiences like that? Because for a long time for me I was just like, man, I I don't know who can tell me, what this all
Yeah.
means, and I went years without anyone telling me what it means. So
Yeah, we know when I was a young kid, being raised on a ranch close with nature, but also right outside a suburb, I had a strong connection with the natural world. Very strong, extremely strong with animals. I mean, even now, I can I can read animals extremely well, reading the energy and the body language. That was a big factor in just where I'm at now, my childhood and what I experienced. Then I did have intentional out of body experiences, which was a game changer. Experiencing reality, that other dimension outside of your body,
I know.
right? Not a dream state, an out of body experience, energetic cord attached to your body, everything. I mean, absolutely. I intentionally practiced that and accomplished that, and was out of body many times. No, I didn't, explore the universe or even outside my general area. It was mainly my house and my yard outside because I was fresh at that. But about the seventh or eighth time, when I was ready to explore, I was met with a shadowy figure that was neutral in energy, and that shadow figure told me, I mean, clear as a whistle, the work is done in the body. It was a message, it was advice, and that clicked for me big time because I was already on my journey of like discovering natural law and Mark Passio and mainly occultism. So that was a big sign. And of course, I've communed with psilocybin mushrooms and mainly DMT, which, I mean,
Yeah.
anybody that's experienced that
I,
at a high level, it's you're speechless on
yeah.
on how to convey that. But those were my game changers.
Yeah, I've never experienced, or I don't have any experience with DMT or you know psychedelics or anything like that. But I have had experiences out of the body with the cord, like you're saying. Walking around my home and looking at my
Hmm.
body, trying to turn on the light, to see if it's real. Um,
Yeah,
I've had those experiences. I haven't seen the shadowy figures, but you know, I I knew that if I kept practicing that, eventually I would get to that. But I was just so freaked out, man, because a lot of these things I would read one time and it would just happen. Not I'm not gonna say it happened naturally or effortlessly, but it was like I knew that I wasn't ready to keep looking and before I kind of did the work, on myself and figured out a way to make sense of what was happening.
yeah,
And I have felt like that fire in my lower back, just like crawling up, crawling up my spine, like it's I've been through
That
that. And
fire serpent. That's the
oh my god, that
that's
kundalini,
the kundalini. Absolutely, it's that energy, the energy building up in the
so
spine,
strong.
making its way. Absolutely, 100%. I was gonna say something. I did have a near death experience when I was 10. Cut my arm, went into, obviously it was shock, but it was like a dream state, and lost so much blood that I passed out. They were going to amputate my arm. My dad wouldn't let them do that. They said it was going to be useless because it cut right here in my right on my bicep. That was a life changing experience. And then obviously the nerves grew back, which they said was kind of a like one in a multi-million chance. So the near death experience was had a huge impact. I would say ever since then, because I was 10, I always was interested in the mystery of life and reality from
Wow.
there. So, and it fades in and out as you grow.
Did you
But
get to talk to anybody, in your NDE, like see anything or?
no, I didn't. I didn't go to another side. It was more the impactful experience was the actual event itself when it happened, and seeing everything unfold. My father saved my life. The ambulance got lost on the way to my uncle's house, so it took a long time. My dad saved my life, and just feeling the dying process. Finally when the ambulance came, I'm laying there, they're cutting off my clothes, and I'm telling them I'm cold, and then the body and the mind just it's triggered in survival mode. So having that dying feeling, being really cold, and I was asking the paramedics, I was saying, am I gonna die? Not like freaking out, but like, am I gonna die? I feel like I'm dying. Like that kind of shit for a 10-year-old, right? So that experience is clear, and I have vivid memory of that. And then, of course, I lost so much blood, I eventually passed out, and I didn't go anywhere or have any memory of that time,
Wow,
that
man.
I can remember. So, yeah,
Wow. That's
these
crazy.
experiences, there's forces that we can tap into, communicate, and commune with, all around us, higher and lower forces. Some of them to hold us back, some of them to aid and assist. That's what it sounds like to me with your, Satori ish experience. You asked for it, you asked the sun, and the forces around you that, are, we all have them. They answered the call for assistance.
Oh yeah. I feel like the universe has this way of always answering, of always saying yes. It's if you really want it. It's like, okay, you want this, you'll get it. But when it hurts, or when you're suffering, that's on you. If you're not ready. And I think there's a certain level of suffering that a person needs to go through before they call out to those, for those questions, right? To get answer, to get answers to those questions. It's for me, I was super low in my life, so that was what kind of triggered. Okay, I need to figure this out, right? So had it not been for the suffering, I probably would have been just fine with my day to day and not really focus any attention on it. So for me, the COVID was the latest thing that kind of made everything, just
Took it to the next level.
yeah, I would say so. I would say so because I kind of got to see everything from the outside, if that makes any sense. Like, me, I never thought that it would happen to me. Like something told me that everything was kind of gonna be okay, and I never wore a mask, never went for the vax. I told my girls, like, no, if they tell you you can't go to school, then we don't you don't go to school. you know my wife never got the vaccine either, and we had booked this
Good for you
vacation.
guys.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Good for you.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
and I'm a believer now, and we were in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, they were pushing the vaccine hard because they wanted everyone to get vaccinated with the boosters and everyone to go to school and do all this stuff. Right now, it's just like, man, if there's going to be a time for us to change, our lives, let's do it ourselves and not let this thing change us. And then we packed everything and moved to Georgia. When we got here to Georgia, it was a whole different thing. Like all the parents were like, "F this," my kids are not going to school. I just homeschool my kids, and I was just, man, this is great. Like these parents are standing up for their kids and for what they believe is right. Like this is what I was missing in Massachusetts. It was just very, oh yeah, sure, I'll get vaccinated. I'll call my friends and I'll say, hey, why did you get the vaccine? I mean, didn't you have the feeling that something was wrong? Oh, well, I needed to travel, and if
Convenience.
I had already booked some trips, and we were gonna lose our trip to whatever, and
Yeah.
we just did the one booster. And I'm like, man, you threw it all out, just for one booster. Like, you don't know what this is gonna do to you 10 years from now, and I waited till the last minute for everything. My job would say, oh yeah, if you're customer facing, they might ask you for a vaccination card. And I said, well, okay, I'll just lay low right now. I don't really want to travel, and I'll do everything on video and try
Hmm.
to help as many people as I can over the phone in the meantime. And I always waited for the last minute. And there were times where I would call my boss and say, you know, uh, I'm ready to file for an exemption because I don't want this vaccine. Like, if it really comes down to it, I don't want to leave this place. I've been here so long. And then they would say, oh, wait a minute, we're getting some news that you might not have to get the vaccine anymore. And then everything started happening. The moment that I started just kind of leaving it alone, everything started unfolding in my favor, where it was like, okay, now you don't need the vaccine. It's okay. You know, you can travel now, no vaccine needed. I was like, man, so many people lost their jobs or went for the vaccine and now they're different. It's
The hubris of just like, okay, we're gonna, it's all good now.
yeah, not me, man. I
Yeah.
waited, and my wife had COVID. I had COVID. We had booked this vacation to the beach, and we had booked it for like 2 months. And I'm telling my wife, I'm like, I feel like I'm dying. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. I don't feel right. And then she's like, well, let's just go to the beach. We already booked this trip. When we're at the beach, maybe you'll feel better. Maybe you just need some fresh air or whatever. I couldn't walk. I was used to walking every day for like 45 to an hour and a half, and I would just walk. But I couldn't. All my steps were like kind of slow, and I just couldn't breathe that well. So I got tested, and I came positive. And she's like, "Okay, let's just go to the beach. Worst case scenario, we'll drive back." It was only like it's like 4.5 hours. I mean, not too bad, but pretty bad. And then when we got to the beach, I would feel better. But slowly I started feeling worse. And
Mm.
then one morning I just woke up. I was just like, man, I feel like I'm dying. Like, take me back. Let's go back to Georgia and I need to go to the hospital. We barely packed everything and we drove back. And then that night we got home and my wife was like, do you really think you need to go to the hospital or is it serious? I'm like, yeah, like I feel like I'm dying. So I go to the hospital. They check my oxygen. It was in the 70s, and they're like, "No, your oxygen is on the floor, man. Like we need to get you in." So from there, I go to the hospital, man. It's like in the lobby, there's people that work that look much worse than I did. There's people, puking into bags. There's people crying. There's families chasing after there was a family chasing after a grandmother that couldn't breathe that had COVID and she was going to get admitted into the hospital. And then all of a sudden I get there 10 minutes later. They they take me in. Meanwhile there's like tons of people in the lobby. I'm like, I felt kind of bad because I was like, wow, look at the treatment they're giving me. And I couldn't help but to think that because I had insurance, they were going to go and take
Oh
care
yeah.
of me, right?
Yep. They
So
definitely do that.
so So they take me into this room, and there's like PVC curtain. There's like curtains made out of PVC, just like dividers like this. And there's like 6 people in this small room. I'm on one side with an oxygen tank. They get me an oxygen tank. Automatically, I feel better with the oxygen tank. I call my wife, and I was so happy. I was like, Paulina, they're just saying my oxygen is low. They're going to have me out of here in 2, 3 days. They're just going to monitor my oxygen. And the nurse was telling me this. She's, oh no, you're in good shape. There's no reason why you should be in here. Like, it's probably your oxygen. Let's monitor it. And I thought I was going to be in there 3 days. 33 days later, man, I was in there.
Wow.
I went in there 225 pounds because I used to work out and all that stuff. I got out of there 180 pounds. I had lost so much weight. No one could see me for the first 15 days. So I was there all alone. The nurses would come in and out, and you can see it in their faces, man. When they would lose somebody, they would come in and so sad. And I would say, what happened? Oh, we just lost somebody. And people were dying around me, and you could feel it just like death, man, like in this side of the hospital. It was just not good at all. So they had me in a small room, no light, there's no windows. There's no windows to see the sun, nothing. And I had a really small bed because they were waiting for another bed to open up, a decent bed with all the bells and whistles, and waiting for like another room and things like this. And it took them like 5 days to find a room for me. But in these 5 days, I'm just like, what's going to happen? My oxygen keeps getting worse and worse. So they put me on a high flow machine with these nebulars, they're called, like the nebulizer, right?
With the cannula.
That's right. So they finally, in those first 5 days, I'm calling my wife like, man, I think I'm gonna die in here. Like, I'm so sorry. Take care of the girls and all these things. She has COVID too, so she's in the bed, trying to recover. She's got COVID. My whole family has COVID. My girls have it. My mother-in-law needs to come to my house to help my wife kind of take care of the girls and stuff. And I think she ended up getting COVID as well. So, but I'm the only one in the hospital going through the worst of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, eventually my wife was able to come in and visit me, and that was amazing. She brought in because I was on my back so much. I wasn't getting a lot of my back was just kind of sticking to the bed and things like this, right? Because I was just so stiff in my back, right? So she gets, I used to have a massage gun, and the nurses would want me to be on my belly to kind of put enough pressure on my lungs to let the air, because I had one of my lungs collapse and I had like a hole in one of my lungs, so air was escaping. So if I was on my belly, it would create more air, in the lung to kind of stay in, right? So with the massage gun, she would hit me with the massage gun in my back, and you can see my oxygen just going up, every time she did that. So we kind of figured that as long as I was, in that position and the massage gun, she was going, it would make my oxygen better. So that kind of became something good to see that my body was responding. And it was not like maybe like the 14th, 15th day, the doctors come in and they were like, hey, we're going to need this high flow machine for another patient. So if you're not showing any signs of recovery, we're going to have to intubate you. And when I got admitted, they made me sign a waiver.
Yeah.
They made me sign a waiver that worst case scenario, if they had to intubate me, that they could. In case I have like no ability to say yes or no, they wanted me to put it in writing. And I did. I signed. So I said, you know what? They had told me I was going to be there and I'd be out of there in 3 days. And so I thought, okay, in 3 days, of course, they're not going to intubate me. So one day, the doctor comes in and he's like, man, your lungs are not responding at all. Like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We need that machine for other patients. Call your family and get your affairs in order. And when he told me that, he was like, I'm so sorry, and walked away. I was just like, wow, man, this guy is telling me, like, call my girls. And I'm calling my wife, just telling her it's okay. I'm good. Don't worry about me. I would tell her take care of the girls, and I'm calling like a few of my friends. I tell a few of my friends that, hey, don't forget about my family. Just keep an eye on them. You don't have to like take care of them. Just call them, and because they had kids. They have kids that are similar ages to my girls too. So I thought, hey, if they're ever around, they can meet up and be friends or things like that. These are good people that I can that are my friends. But
Sounds
that
like the
night, man,
hospital was just writing you off. Like, oh, well, no hope for him. We need that machine.
we need that machine, and they
I
were
mean,
telling me right there and then.
yeah.
And all I had, man, was my phone. My phone. At one point, I just had my phone. I had called everybody that I needed to say goodbye to, and I just had my phone. And I was like, okay, what am I gonna play? And I started playing Bob Marley, and that freedom song, redemption song, came on. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And then these words start like mental slavery, and I would just sit there and think like, oh, I always thought he said something else. I always thought he said anti-slavery for
Mm.
some reason. But that day I figured out that he's saying mental slavery. And I'm like, fuck, it's all in our minds, right? So I start thinking like this. And then there's another guy that I listen to. His name is Jason Mraz. I don't know if you know Jason Mraz, but
Yeah,
he's
the
got like a
musician.
lot of
Mm-hmm.
upbeat songs, like motivational songs with the like hidden words and meanings and things. And I was like, wow. And I would listen to these songs, and all of a sudden they had a different meaning. I'm listening to these songs and they don't sound the same anymore.
Mm.
But I'm laying there and I'm enjoying the music, and I say to myself, you know what? I'm not a bad person. I haven't harmed anyone. Um, I'm okay. This is it. This is it. I'm ready. You know. And when I said those words, I kid you not, man, I felt a rush of energy, just a rush of energy, almost like a shift. Like when you take a battery, right? And if you reverse the polarity, you almost get like a little bit of charge.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that got me going, and I felt it. And I just felt it. And I was just, oh, that's strange. And then I started hearing something, and I started getting new thoughts. Like these thoughts were coming out of nowhere. All of a sudden, something told me to call my old doctor in Massachusetts and ask her about the antibiotics that I took when I had Lyme disease. And I was just like, man, that's it. That's why I had Lyme disease. It has to be. So I called my wife the next morning. My oxygen is on the floor. I'm thinking they're gonna take my oxygen away that day. I say to my wife, I said, look, call our old doctor, ask her to tell you the antibiotics that she gave me when I had Lyme disease. She's like, okay, let me make the phone call. 2 hours later, I found out that she had talked to my doctor that was taking care of me here. He comes in. He's like, yeah, I talked to your doctor. The medication she gave you is called doxycycline. It's not gonna do much, but I'll give it to you if you want to. I said, wait a minute, what do you mean it's not gonna do much? What's the medication for? What does it do? Well, it's an anti-inflammatory. What you have is very severe. Your lungs collapse. You have a hole the size of a quarter in your left lung. Your oxygen is on the floor. There's very little that this is gonna do for you. If you want me to give it to you, I will, but I'm still gonna need that machine, and if you don't make a turnaround in one more day. So I'm like, okay, let's do a 7-day treatment of that doxycycline. Two
Mm.
days later, I start making a turnaround, and then I was just like, wow. The doctor comes in and he's like, hey, it looks like your lungs are responding a little bit. Let's keep it going, see how it goes. And I started getting better and better, better and better. By this time, my wife is able to visit me. She's bringing me in, all this healthy food. The worst food was the hospital food, man. Oh my god,
Oh
freaking
yeah.
fried chicken and all this crap. And I hadn't eaten a lot, right? So I hadn't gone to the bathroom, hadn't taken a shower. So by the 18th, 19th day, I'm okay. I'm able to watch TV, just kind of get to eating, and you know, they have a physical therapist coming into my room because my legs are completely gone. I can't even walk, can't even stand, can't even sit. Can't even go to the bathroom. I have like all sorts of things
Atrophied.
attached to go
Yeah.
atrophy. Right, right. I keep looking at myself, and all these muscles that I had are just gone, man. And I'm just like, man, all that working out for nothing. It makes you realize like everything can go away so fast in a blink of an eye. So I wasn't thinking about working out anymore. I was just like okay with it. I was just happy to be getting better, and um, I started just appreciating this little crack on the window where the sun would shine through every day at 1 o'clock, and I looked forward to
Mm.
that time at 1 o'clock. I would just put my head, and the sun would just hit me just right in my face, and I could feel it. And I would close my eyes and start bawling, just like
Mm.
crying like a freaking baby, man. Um, just it was like a fast track to to complete self awareness, self realization. It was like a fast track. Like everything happened in those 33 days. I got to meet people from Haiti, from Dominican Republic, from Jamaica, and they were taking care of me like I was their son, man. Like it's so hard to explain. And
Yeah.
when I was on the medication, I would yell at these people because I was just so frustrated. And then when they would come back in the room, like after I had yelled at them, they'd come back an hour later, and I would say, "Look, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you, and I had no right to say those things, and I didn't mean those things." And they would say, "You're gonna be okay. Like don't worry about it." And it was like I was almost forced to deal with the side of myself where I had to be vulnerable, like 100% vulnerable. I had to let go of every single insecurity because, as you're you have nothing on, right? So you're in the bed. There's like nothing on. You got different nurses coming in taking care of you because you can't go to the bathroom. You can't get up, right? So it's like you're a baby.
Mm.
You got. I'm 32 years old. Well, how old was I then? No, I was 39. 39 years old and getting treated like a baby. It's just
It's
it just makes you kind of wake up really really fast, and you get to feel what really matters in the world. And I think there's a part of humanity that can absolutely be saved, and absolutely be um, you know I don't think if there's anyone out there that thinks that we need to give up on humanity and there's no way to fix it. I think I don't know. I don't think that's right. I think there's definitely an opportunity to turn things around, but we just have to get into situations where we have to rely on each other, so that we can help each other, and then we can see that there's some good people out there still.
yeah, man. We're all in this together, right? And it's gonna take together. It's gonna take all of us to get ourselves in the aggregate out, and it's done by individual action. That story is so fascinating. It's very similar to, in a way, different context, but as your kind of your Satori experience, the fast track to self awareness and self realization. Um, 33 days in the hospital, 33 being a significant symbolic number, but also what I found from that story was the power of mentalism. Here you have you're at the low point when you're in the hospital. The doctors, I mean, are being negative and have pretty much no hope for you, right? But you played a song that took you from one frequency to another, one line of thinking out to a another line of thinking, and of course like the body responds to that as well, right? It's all one system. And just by listening to music and your mind, right? It's mind over matter. That's the initiator that kind of started the process of you kind of making a turn for the health. And that's fantastic, man.
Yeah, yeah, I could feel it. I could feel it. And even when I came out of the hospital, still, I had a lot of work to do. I couldn't walk very well. I had an oxygen tank for, for another 8 weeks after that.
Mm.
And I was just pretty much sitting on a couch, couldn't go up the stairs. My family would sleep upstairs. I would sleep downstairs on the couch because I couldn't go up the stairs. I couldn't go one step, two steps, nothing.
Yeah.
So I was just there on the couch. So I got to watch a lot of TV. And then I started seeing things. I started seeing things differently. I would see commercials by Patron and I would just see symbols and signs. It was the weirdest thing. Like I saw this commercial for tequila that came up, and they were showing how they make the tequila, and it would show like three women facing down and three women facing up, and they would show like if you freeze. I would start freezing the commercial, and if you freeze it just right, you would see the figure of a Baphomet
Mm.
on the screen, and I was just like, man, like this is not coincidence. Like that, I'm able to identify this, and going back and thinking to myself, like someone put that there on purpose. This is not something like you could clearly see, this symbol, and then there's a guy tapping on like this metal piece that almost looks like a brain, where half of the brain is shaded, and then the other half of the brain is like not shaded, and he's tapping on it, and it's clearly shape of a brain, and then the part that he's holding is almost like the stem, going down your spinal cord, right? And he's holding it and tapping it, and all these things, they show like a pine cone going on fire, and then this little door opens up where the fire just kind of goes into this little door. And it was just so many signs that I could identify. And I said to myself, like, wait a minute, why am I seeing these things now? I just didn't know how to explain those things. And then all of a sudden, I just had like this constant, not urge, but this constant thought of like just getting information. I felt like I was the robot from like Short Circuit, Johnny Five. Like input. Like I felt like I just had
Yes.
to like consume. Like I just had to read everything and see everything and pause everything. And then I come across Mark Passio. That video that he showed yesterday that had 2.5 million views. There's like
Yes.
this one video that he's got. It's like not a compilation, but it's like a reduced version of his natural law seminar.
Yeah, it's the science of natural law. It's his full feature documentary.
Yeah, but there's another channel that's called Be Advice or something that's got like 9 million subscribers, and his
Oh
videos
yes.
got 2.5 million views.
Yeah.
And I watched this video like 40 times because what the first time that I watched it, I could tell that there was so much information in there, but it didn't mean anything. The first time it just didn't mean anything, and I was so frustrated. And I would wait a day or two, watch it again, and then it was like, okay, wait a minute. Be Advice is not this guy. I said to myself, this guy doesn't work for Be Advice. Like, who is this guy? And I would look in the comments, and eventually I landed on his name, Mark Passio. And then I started looking up Mark's and seminars, and I started watching that. But then I started going back to that video first because I noticed that it was like a summary, and his videos were like the seminars were like 2-3 hours. And I said to myself, well, if I can't understand the 30-minute video where everything is a summary, I'm not going to be able to understand the rest. So I kept watching that one video, and I watched it like 40 times. And every time there was new things, new concepts that were popping up. And then I ran into, him talking about the Hermetic principles. And I said, okay, I've heard of the Hermetic principles. And then I had a book by Billy Carson that he talks about the Hermetic principles. So I was able to take that book and read about the Hermetic principles and then validate like Mark's information.
Is it that one?
That one,
I just
that
happen to
one,
have it sitting right
it's
here. I was doing
it's
some
in
research.
it's in here somewhere,
Yeah.
and then it started snowballing into more and more and more, and then it's like I had to tell my wife like, watch this, like look at what he's talking about, does it? And then same like me, it was just not make sense to her. So then I just felt I was alone again. I was just like, man, why is this happening to me? I was again, having these feelings of just like feeling lost and no one to talk to. So I would talk to a friend of mine back in Massachusetts, and he was kind of aware of some stuff at the time, and he was the only one that would listen. So I would just talk to him about stuff, and we would run into kind of the same questions together, and we would ask ourselves things and go and bounce ideas off of each other. But I would always review that video and go back to that video by Mark. And that video alone, man, helped me tremendously because he breaks down the Hermetic principles and um, mentalism and vibration and correspondence and all that stuff. And I was just like, man, the whole point is that there's a framework, of universal laws that can work for you so that you can have a better life, a moral life, and so that we all can come out of this freaking mess. So, and then it made total sense. Like, oh, of course, like if all these things are happening to me, it's because I asked for it at some point, whether I know it or not, or knowingly or unknowingly. And this is what's happening. I'm going through this spiritual awakening, this cleansing of sorts. And, it's like an awareness, to consciousness. And that's kind of doing all the cleanup of all the old beliefs and, all the bad information that you've taken in, over the years. It's almost, Mark made me aware of this verse in the Bible where it talks about Jesus coming in to kind of clean house and not picking fights, but he says that it's like a sword that's gonna put you against your daughters and your father and and your mother-in-law and everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens. You get this little bit. I think of yourself of like just in complete darkness, and then this one streak of light that's able to shine through, and that little bit of light is going to start opening up and closing and turning into more light, and everything that was dark is going to open up and just clear out. And it has to clear out. It has no other option but to to leave, right? So that's I felt like that's what was happening. It was like a fast track to a spiritual awakening, and anything that's in your way, it's going to get cleared out. You just have to trust that it's going to be for the better. And when it's all said and done, you're going to be the most amazing person and you're going to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah,
So,
these are the initiatory events in our life, which are, big life events that happen. And you went through one of those life events and you learn from it. You learn the lesson. And, whether it's deprogramming or stripping away some of the calcification so we can have a wider aperture of awareness. So many people have tunnel vision. Their aperture is closed. If you talk to people about, spiritual science or, get too deep, then they can't comprehend that. That's because their aperture is super small and they can't comprehend anything outside the field of their aperture, their perception, which is kind of our job as content creators, is to influence the self, influence someone to expand their aperture, right? And then they themselves need to do the work. And that's what it sounds like. You did the work in these initiatory events, and putting in that work in the liminal space, just the space between the event and then the outcome. And you came out with a distillation of soul and spirit and higher awareness. And I think we go through these events and these initiations all through our life. The issue is people don't work on themselves or don't have the pattern recognition to see the signs and symbols, to feel that opportunity of trust in the universe, in themselves, and act upon it. And this is built into the system of reality. The learning process of us evolving as consciousness and as spiritual beings, and the effect of not learning the lesson is suffering, pain, and then suffering. And that will keep amplifying until the lesson is learned. And this is where we're at now. Human beings have not learned their lesson. They have not recognized the patterns that are laid out in front of them by creation, and we're there to guide and assist and inspire. And yeah,
That's great. No,
that's
very powerful words.
that's our
And
moral obligation.
I know. I feel like that even right now. And, now that I'm able to, now that I've come out, out of all of this suffering, like you're saying, it's through sharing my experiences, like you keep saying, it's going to be important for me. It's going to allow me to find meaning with all that, why all that happened.
Yeah,
And it's going to allow me to help my family too, because increasing that awareness to see these patterns is going to help me help my daughters. You know,
100%, man. I
yeah,
mean, you're giving them a great gift. That
yeah,
great gift of knowledge. I mean, it's priceless.
dude, you should hear me talk around here. Like I'll say to my daughters, like I'll say, look, nobody in the world, no one within so many miles of you is talking to you like I am. No one is going to tell you these things. Nobody. So I tell them I want to make sure that if I leave tomorrow, don't feel sad for me. Be happy because I would already have accomplished what I came here to do. But you need to be the one to listen to this and put it into practice, when the time is right. And this is why I wanted to start a podcast. And I write stuff down all the time. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and write down my dreams.
Hmm.
I have Carl Jung's book on dreams. It's like
Mm-hmm.
a book that he's got where he tells you about his dreams, and he tries to kind of make sense of the stuff that's happening to him. And I read a little bit of that book, but I also have it's like a dreams guide that I carry on my phone, and every morning I go and open it up and I start looking because I'll dream every night different things, and what I've understood from dreams is that it's images and reflections on your current state. It's like, okay, when you go to sleep and the sun goes down, it's almost like checks and balances, and when you go to sleep, your consciousness, or you're telling yourself, okay, this is what you did today. Okay, now you need to reflect on that and be better tomorrow. So
That's
every
right.
night I look at my dreams every night because now I know the next day what I need to work on, and
Yeah.
it's a way to always to also build your intuition. My
Yep.
intuition got to a point where I didn't trust it at first, but I would say to myself during meditation, I said, okay, give me a sign that there's something called intuition and that I'm working on it. And then all of a sudden I leave the house, and then let's say my wife would call me and say, hey, let's meet up so in this place, but bring my purse. I forgot my purse. I'll say, yeah, I'll bring your purse, no problem. 30 minutes later, I forget the purse, but I'm driving and I'm halfway down the road. I start getting like a stomach, just like a weird feeling. Like, where's this coming from?
Hmm.
And then my phone would ring. Don't forget the purse. And then I would go and get the purse. And,
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
wasted 10 minutes because then I have to turn back. And then I would tell my wife, "Oh yeah, I have the purse," but I didn't. So
Yeah.
then I would say to myself, "Oh, my intuition is working."
It's like a
Um,
muscle. Intuition. You can build it up and it can enhance. And we have these innate abilities that are fundamental just by our very being as humans, and our existence, that we are obviously have been um, stunted on, but we can activate these capabilities and grow them and advance them as well. And that's in the universe, nature, source, God, creation, right? Whatever term you want to call it. I choose nature, which means creation. It's all about relationship and communication. Relationship to yourself, relationship to the greater reality, to nature, and it's in constant flux of communication. And when we attune ourselves to that, those frequencies, to that communication, then it becomes clear in our dreams, in the patterns that we see on a day-to-day basis, intuition, reading energy, all this kind of stuff. And
Oh
it
my God.
really is a constant conversation that we call life, if you're really living.
I know. That's the other thing is like we have to uh we have to cut through all the BS and get there. And I think people have to see just enough, like get a glimpse of what that's like, and they'll start to change. But with all the distractions, it's just hard to make that distinction, and it's so easy to just fall through, the day to day, and then just live your entire life that way. And I think for me, because I started asking, and I would ask and say things like what I just told you, like I would just say, if my intuition is real, like show me.
Mm,
And then the universe will, there's something out there listening, that would absolutely show you when you're ready. You know, um,
absolutely.
there was one time I said to myself, okay, show me the best version of myself, or, show me the best day I could have, just to kind of gauge like what that would look like. And I just had this feeling of like complete peace, like I felt like such an alignment, like all my chakras was just clear, and I could feel like, just I was just happy, I was just like,
Yeah.
wow, this is what it's like. And I said to myself, okay, because I feel so great, I'm gonna go play the lottery. So I go down to the gas station and I follow this guy, and I said to him, he buys like he buys like 3 tickets, but he buys like many of them of the same kind. So I go up to the counter after he leaves, and I said to the guy, I said, "Give me one of each ticket that he bought, the gentleman before me." And he says, "Oh, no problem." And he had bought like a couple $10 tickets, so I took a $10 ticket. No, I had taken a $20 ticket, a $10 ticket, and a $5 ticket, and all 3 tickets were winners. One had $500, the second one had $100, and then the third one had $10. $660 I
Yeah.
had won. And
Wow.
and I was just like, wow, this is a sign. Like I know this is happening. And then other times I would say to myself, okay, I'm gonna play the lottery today, and if I win, I'm gonna get half my winnings. And I would go one day, I won $100 in a ticket.
Yeah.
And the first kid that talked to me, um, he said something to me. He said like nice Jeep or something. I drive a Jeep. He said nice Jeep. So I go into the store, buy the ticket, get the $100. I walk away with the $100. I go up to him, I gave him $50. He's like, "What's this for?" He's like, "Man, this is so great, man. I don't even have money for gas. Thank you so much."
Wow.
And
That's
it's like,
that's
man, the universe, I think, has a sense of humor, and it's funny in many ways. As long as you align yourself with your purpose, it's always kind of, showing you and giving you thanks for things. If you're able to listen and kind of do follow along with what you believe to be true, and do the right thing, and act morally, I think that's where we all need to be, and beautiful things can happen for everybody. Yeah.
absolutely, man. Yeah, well said. And to bring it back to what you when you talked about meaning and purpose, that meaning, like what does it mean, which is like the bullseye, the center, the source, understanding morality and how to operate in the world correctly. And by having that eye of awareness, which is the title of this interview, and being that seeker and pursuing the truth, and pursuing the meaning, right? By then, we get the purpose, and that purpose is action. So you have the internal and the external, meaning and purpose, cause and effect. And this is where I think a lot of people miss out, especially in the new age circles when they talk about the law of attraction. It's all about, you know, what you think and how you feel, but they leave out that action part. And the meaning will not become clearer if you don't have a purpose and if you don't act. Many people understand meaning and they don't activate in life and they wither away and they don't have the will to live eventually. So they go hand in hand, right? It's the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, meaning and purpose.
Well
So,
said.
yeah, man.
Well
Um,
said.
what a great story. There was some fantastic comments in the chat.
What are they saying?
What a great conversation, an amazing story. That was by Sarah Cross. This is Crip Rick. I would love to chat with your guests sometime, Will. We speak about similar things. You and Crip Rick would have a great conversation. He has a radio show on Revolution Radio, and also the beautiful Sarah Cross. She has a radio show, Crosstalk. So she would love to listen. All you guys would have really good conversations.
I would love
So
it. And if you have time for one more, I'll tell you something.
absolutely.
So one day, I woke up, right, and I'm just like not having a very good day. I don't feel very good, and I don't understand where this is coming from. But I just get up and I had this sudden like need to clear up my desk. I said to myself, okay, let me start by just cleaning up my space, and letting energy just kind of flow through, right? And I always print things. If I see something interesting, I always print it so that I can read it later. Like I have a bunch of papers even right here that I print. And I had printed one chapter of this book called The God Man by George W. Carey. You know which one I'm talking about? The Word
Yes.
Made Flesh.
Yes.
I had watched a video on YouTube and it's talking about this Christ oil thing, right? So I don't know if you've heard about that, but
The
and you're
Christos. Yeah.
the Christos, right? So chapter 13 in that book, I didn't know about the book, but chapter 13 is called the Antichrist. When I looked at it, I looked at the title because I was just so programmed, into thinking that Antichrist meant like, Antichrist, and it's associated with all the negative things that you hear from religion and things like this. I just kind of dropped the pages or the chapter on my desk, and it'd been like months, never read it because I was afraid of the title. It's just to kind of show you like how the mind, you need to clean it up and get past all these old beliefs, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm cleaning my desk, and under a bunch of papers, there's the chapter, and I look at it again, and it says the Antichrist. I'm like, and I read it, and I'm like, wow, like this is a very powerful book. So I leave it on my desk, and I don't know. I was throwing away a bunch of other papers, but this chapter, I didn't throw it away. I kept it, but I kept cleaning my desk. And that day, I had to go to my nephew's. He was going to propose to his fiance or to his wife now, but he was going to propose to his girlfriend to get married. And I was kind of rushing all over the place that day because we knew that we needed to be done by 3 o'clock to go to my nephew's, proposal thing. But anyways, we go to my nephew's thing, and the whole time I don't feel good. My stomach is just a mess. They all go to a Mexican restaurant to eat. I don't eat. I just said, you know what, just give me water or whatever drink I had. Everyone was having a good time except me. I just felt so bad. I don't know. I don't know why. So I come home. The AC is not working. It's completely gone. No one touched the AC. Nothing. I start messing with it. We come home like at 11 o'clock at night. It's super hot. My girls are complaining that it's hot. They want the AC working. So I said, I'm going to fix it. I reset it to factory, reset the thermostat to factory. That was the worst thing I could ever do. Now I can't get it back working. We went to sleep with no AC. It was horrible. Everyone's complaining. It was like 95 degrees outside. The next day I wake up, I'm like, I got to call somebody. So I call the people that, there's like a name on the thermostat, and I call them, to see if they could come and fix it. And they said, okay, we don't have anybody till tomorrow. So now this is another day where there's no AC in the house. The thermostat, I had completely messed it up. We couldn't get it back to anything. I had spent like days reading the manual trying to figure it out. There's one setting that I needed to set. But anyways, the kid that comes to fix the thermostat, it's this young kid. He comes in 5 minutes. He goes up to the attic, comes back, reprograms the thing, gets it working, and he jets out of there like in 5-10 minutes. And I said to him, are you sure you fixed it? Because I tried everything, man. I don't know how to deal with that. Are you sure you could, it's going to work? He said, well, check it for the next 30 minutes. It should be fine. But if in the next 30 minutes it fails again, I'll come back. I'm going to be down the road doing some other work, and I'll just come back and fix it if anything. 30 minutes go by, the thing starts failing again. So I call him up, and he's like, okay, I'll be right down. So he comes back. This time he's waiting the full 30 minutes to make sure everything's working before he leaves. But I notice that he's a little bit anxious. And I start feeling the right side of my body just like tingling. And my right brain is tingling. And it's like a different feeling. Every time I'm looking at this guy, I feel like I need to do something. I just don't know what it is. So the only thing that I could do at the time is grab the chapter to that book. And I said, look, man, don't think this is weird, but something is telling me to give you this. I don't know what you're going to do with this. And he says, what is that? I said, look, it's just a chapter of a book. I didn't even know the name of the book. It just said The Antichrist. So I said, look, I know it's called The Antichrist, but this is for you. I already read the chapter, but here. And he looks at the chapter and he reads it. It's called he says, I know what this is from. I said, you know what that book is? He said, yeah, it's called The God Man, Word Made Flesh. We study it at our church. And we did a whole series where we covered that book for like 8 weeks. I said, really? And then he starts crying. I said, what's going on, man? He says, well, my high school sweetheart, at the time, she was 23, I was 25. And, we have this thing in my family where we each have to read, everyone has to read the Bible by the time they turn 25. So she wasn't turning 25, I was, and I didn't really go to church or anything, but I was doing it because of her, because she had lupus and she died at 23. She didn't really get to finish the Bible and all these things. And this was the book that we were covering at the time in church. So I remember the chapter exactly. He told me everything about the book. And then I just kept feeling like these vibrations. And as he's telling me the story, I just start feeling weird, man. Like all that feeling of anxiety that I had, everything starts like calming down. Mm-hmm. And it's like I had to have that conversation with this kid. And it made me kind of look back at the last couple days and everything that happened. It's like, okay, there's no way that this is by chance. Like the fact that this is our brand new home. We moved into Georgia here it was like a brand new, new build home. Mm-hmm. No one ever touched the thermostat. No one, and it's like that had to fail. I had to have all these feelings, this whole thing with the chapter, of this book that I didn't even want to read to begin with. All of a sudden now I have to read it because there's a connection that was made with someone that came to my house. It's not like I even went outside to look for this.
That knew of that book as well.
I know. And prior to that, I had been meditating. I was very skeptical. I was asking, like, show me. I wasn't convinced, even still, not now, but I'm saying at that time, I was just like, no, like, there's no way. Like, I would get these little things, these synchronicities, and I would be like, no, there's no way. Like, you got to show me more. And because I work from home, I don't really go out, that person, that had to come to me and find me. And it's just, it was just so revealing to think, okay, there's something out there, you know, that's not chance. It's no coincidence that, you know, that this all happened. And ever since that day, I've been more open to believing and understanding these things, because
Oh,
it's just too
absolutely.
much. It's just too much to say that that's all like coincidence. You know, that would be silly of me to say that at this point.
Yeah, coincidence does not exist. Chance does not exist, right? Chance is just law not recognized, meaning that someone didn't connect the patterns. And sometimes we can't know the patterns, but everything is interconnected, and it everything flows. So we human beings, right? We have that ability to recognize these connections and these certain types of patterns, and a lot of times it's very synchronistic, but it's all by design, right? Every cause has an effect, every effect has a cause, and to experience synchronicities like that, they're another form of communication, and they're very telling and revealing. When someone experiences a lot of synchronicities, or a big predominant synchronicity, that there's usually a message saying the path is straight and narrow, continue on it. Like the path that you're on, keep going. And I think a lot of times that's what synchronicities are referring to. So I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have so many stories like that. So many, man. You know, now that I
That's
look back, it's they've been all in front of me the whole time, the entire time. I was just so not. I was just so distracted. I was just not recognizing the patterns. So I'm able to see that now, and the fact that I can look back and see these things, I feel honored in a way, you know, and I feel kind of lucky in a way. It's like, you know, out of so many people, you know, in the world, you know, I get to kind of tell these stories.
yeah,
You know,
man.
that's all I want to do. Just tell these stories, let people know that there's something else out there that wants to communicate with you, and it doesn't have to be woo woo or magic or anything dark. It's just who we are. You know,
That's right.
it's nothing. You know, we've been led to believe that that's not who we are, but it's the other way around. You know, it's who we're meant to be, and it's our natural state, and we just need to wake up to that. You know, I don't like the term waking up a lot, because it kind of tells, you know, it depicts, you know, a state of of like being asleep. But I don't think we're asleep. I think we're awake, but we just don't get to see who we are when we are awake. You know, so
Yeah,
we don't get to see who that person is, you know, when that person awakens, which is our true self. You know, so
that's right.
we just have to let just a little bit of distractions, just a little bit, you know, a little less phone, a little less bad eating. You know, I think eating is a touchy thing, because a lot of people don't understand that eating consuming meat can be a problem. I think we all get to that state where we're forced to make the decision, you know, where it's like clearly, you know, there's been times where I had a steak, and I automatically feel it. You know, I'm just not the same person. You
Mm,
know, an hour later, I just feel it, and I just feel energy leaving my body. You
yeah,
know, it's not a good thing. You know, I try not to eat meat anymore, um, which, you know, is something that
excellent.
I'm struggling with. But you know, I've
It's a
gone like,
process.
yeah, it's a process. I've gone many months without eating meat before, and I've been okay. But yeah, between distractions, you know, watching what you eat, you know, just maintaining a peaceful demeanor and being there for others and being moral and then things like this, I think that cultivates a good state of mind for you to wake up and see the patterns. Yeah, for sure.
Well said, man. Yeah, well said. I mean, we are creative beings, and just like Patty said, she says I have a video appearing under this one that says action plan needed, right? Signs, symbols, synchronicities, and our capability to create and influence and inspire. That's why I say, doing the one great work. It's about creating art, because art is creative expression with a meaning and purpose, and that message. So this is what we're here to do, man. And you're a fantastic storyteller. That's a huge attribute.
Thank you.
I hope, you really recognize that. And I'm looking forward to see future content that you're gonna create and manifest. And man, yeah, I'm glad you came on here and shared these stories with us. Fantastic, shared your experiences. I know there was a lot of great comments in the chat, so people were definitely digging you conveying these experiences. And that's why another reason why I think it's so important is because we can relate. Certain people can relate more than others, and having that relatability shows that we are a human family. We are one family on this planet and within the universe. So what we do individually matters, and we don't have to do it fully alone. Fully alone, for sure.
Well said. Well said. Well, thanks for bringing me in, and to all the comments. Thank you for that, and happy to get on other shows as well. Just to get the practice of speaking about these things. I think it'll do a lot for me too, to speak out and tell my stories, for sure.
Yeah, man, I commend you, man, putting yourself out there and saying, "Fuck it, I'm gonna hop on there and let's do this." So anybody that wants to contact you, right, they can go to your Instagram, at Eye of Awareness 22. Any other places that you want to promote?
I just bought
on Instagram.
Well, yeah, on Instagram is fine. I'm I try to not watch Instagram too much, but after 5-6 o'clock, I'll hop on there and answer any questions if anyone's got any, and happy to help anyone through there as well. I just registered a domain, anticipating Mark's, lesson on how to build a website and things like this. I went through Bluehost, and I registered freedomtohumanity.com. So that's going to be my website pretty soon.
I've got one. I love that URL.
Yeah. I was lucky to kind of grab that, and I try to go for fth.com as well to kind of keep the short domain, almost like Mark does. I think you do that as well with some of your pages, but that I wasn't able to register that. But between Eye of Awareness, freedomtohumanity.com, I also have another domain called the One Eye Podcast, which I intend to use for my podcast as well. So I've got some, I'm planning to do some great things here, and I think it's going to be fun, and hopefully I can get this stuff out there in time so you guys can enjoy some of the stories that I have.
Fantastic, brother. Yeah, again, thank you for coming on here, and huge respect and love for the work that you're putting in and the activation that you're going through. And I'm gonna follow you, and let's do this again. Let's stay connected, and of course we're gonna talk to each other in how to become the True Media class, which we have the rest of the year in. So it's going to be great.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Looking forward to all of that. Thank you, Will. Thanks again. And thanks for all the comments. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother. And to everyone that joined and hopped in the chat and viewed the live show, thank you so much. And again, in about an hour and a half, I'm going to be doing the debate deliberation on YouTube, the Deliberating Dogface Dudes with Benjamin Balderson, John Rowland, and Alan. It's going to be on, is morality objective or subjective? So this is going to be a deliberation. It's going to be fun, exciting, and spicy. So in 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, YouTube, Deliberating Dogface Dudes. Got to get that right. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good evening, and I'll see you about an hour and a half.